This show hopes to help you manage your daily financial matters through tackling different and common financial issues that most individuals and households face. This week on Money Life, we'll look at the case of housing. After a long day of work, everybody wants to go home to a nice and secure home. Majority of people cannot afford to buy or build their own homes, and as such, we rent. From one-room shacks to standard two-bedroom flats and even dreamy mansions, people are renting and renting. But how wise is renting? Today, we meet Josh.
My name is Joshua. I work for a software development company. It pays some good money, yeah.
Josh lives in an upmarket apartment in Lavington.
I was looking for somewhere quiet, first of all, a spacious place where I could just relax after a long day at work and just think over, get more energy for the next day. So I ended up in this place. I love it. It's all I've wanted. It's amazing. It's a two-bedroom apartment, fully furnished, as you can see. A balcony where I normally just chill out, read my magazines, and an extra bedroom where I can host parties and my friends can come over. I love how the bathrooms have been made. They're big. I love big bathrooms. The kitchen itself is amazing. There's a store and a cool room.
As you've guessed, it's rented.
Well, the rent is not so bad. It's I can handle it. It's not so bad for such a lovely place. It's not so bad.
While Josh is capable of comfortably paying his rent, he is worried about the wisdom of his continued tenancy.
Been living here for the last 2 years. After living for 2 years, I'm thinking I'm paying too much for this place, and I really would love a place of my own where I'd call home.
Josh can spend his whole life renting and enriching his landlord, or find a way to acquire his own home and build a secure future for himself.
I think it's becoming too expensive for me to continue paying rent for this place, whereas I can just, buy my own place or build my own place. I'd want that.
Meet financial wellness consultant Manyara Kirago. Manyara Kirago is the managing director at Financial Counseling, where he has helped thousands of people overcome their daily financial challenges. He is a graduate of Boston University Financial Planning Program and the College for Financial Planning in Denver, Colorado, USA. Manyara is a longtime newspaper financial columnist and has over his career counseled employees of major companies including Safaricom, EABL, Bamburi Cement, Citibank, and many others. And today, he is here to counsel Josh.
Josh, you have a nice place here.
Well, thank you, Manyara. It's lovely. I love how spacious it is.
Yeah.
It's close to where I work. Although I have some issues, and that's why actually I wanted you to help me. Well, the first year I was very comfortable.
Yeah.
With the rent, of course. But then I started doing my calculation. I'm thinking, okay, if I'm going to stick here for much too long, then it means I will never end up owning my own home.
About how much do you pay for your rent?
Considering it's in Lavington, it's 60 there, thousand. Yeah.
Wow, that's quite substantial. You probably have a lease of some sort, maybe 5 years, or most properties like this have 5-year leases.
Yes.
Same case.
Yes.
And many of them have an escalation clause where after 2 years,
it goes up
slightly
again,
up
yeah.
there.
It's reviewed after every 2 years.
Yeah. If you're paying about 57 or so, in a year, since you said it would be escalating every 2 years or so,
yeah.
The first 2 years you pay about 1.3 million shillings. That's just the first 2 years. Then the third and fourth year you pay another 1.5. The fifth year you pay 800 27,000. In total, for those 5 years, you'll pay 3.7 million shillings.
Wow.
Just so that you get that number right, the rent that Josh will have paid over 5 years with 10% escalation every 2 years is over 3.7 million shillings.
3.7 million. In 5 years. Things that do with 3.7 million in 5 years. I could do a lot. I could do a lot of farming. I could invest in other stuff. But the way he was putting it, now it made me see that all this money is going to the landlord. You need to move. 3.7 million.
Well, if you put it that way, it seems as if I have a lot of money, but which I don't.
Oh yeah, you do. You do. It's only maybe you might want to use it in a different way. After paying that 3.7 million shillings, will you have anything to show for that 3.7 million shillings?
Actually, no.
And that's the sad thing about rent. Obviously, you have to live somewhere, and if you're just starting out, you have no option but to rent.
Yes.
But for many people, just like you're thinking of owning something in the long term, it should be one of the things that you should think of setting up.
It's painful every month you have to pay someone, and after say 5 years, you really don't have anything to show of it.
We have just talked about 5 years. If you push that to 10 years or 15 years, the case just gets even worse because the rent just keeps on going up, and you're accumulating nothing. But on the other hand, if you were to buy your own house of whatever type, each year you'll be getting slightly better off because most properties, they increase in value. So you'll find that if it was worth, say, 5 million today, 3 years down the line, it will be worth more. So you're actually getting richer. Rather than in this other way where you're paying rent, you just pay more and more and you're not getting any richer. So
yes.
It's a good thought to think of ways in which you can own a house. It's a good idea.
What's the plan? How am I supposed to start off? What's the first step towards owning my own home?
You have already taken the first step. And that first step is thinking in that way you're thinking. Realizing that continuing being a tenant is not really a winning situation. Once you have realized that, you can now begin to look for ways in which to acquire a house. One of the ways is to buy a house with a mortgage. There are many ways to skin a cat. So one of the ways, especially like you told me you've got a good job, it's a stable income, and a mortgage is a good idea because it enables you to own a home straight away and you pay over time, just the way you're paying the rent. So instead of paying the landlord, you'll be paying the finance company and reducing your debt and increasing your worth. So a mortgage is a good way to start. However, to buy a house with a mortgage, there are several things which you need to do first. When you go to a mortgage company, they'll ask you for a deposit. That can be a lot of money. It ranges between 5 to 10% of the value of the property. 5 to 10% of a house, you find it may be a lot of money which you might not have immediately.
Yes.
And in addition to that, there's some other costs, the legal fees, valuation fees, and those ones add up to another 5 to 7%. So it's quite a huge chunk of money, so you need to be prepared. I don't know whether you have any investments, savings, because if you do, that's a good starting place.
I do have some piece of land somewhere where I do farming.
Okay. What I was thinking of is something which you can actually sell, liquidate, to use that money for deposit. Now, if you're farming, then you definitely would not want to sell the farm. Oh, by the way, is that big BMW out there yours? Just a question. Actually, what I do is I keep on looking for ways to cut on costs. One of the big places where people use a lot of money, which really does not lead them to be able to do things like buy a house, is things like spending too much on motor vehicles.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not saying you should not drive a BMW. It's a good thing for you, but you should drive it only if you can afford. And afford means your other financial ducks are in line. Many people find it difficult to sell the things which they own, but that's one where you can actually raise the deposit by selling some of the things which you own. And remember, you cannot compare something like a car with a house. A house is something which is appreciating in value. It will be going up for eternity, theoretically, of course. But you look at a car is the exact opposite. a car goes down in value and eventually you have to replace it. If you are given a choice between a car and a house, it should be a no-brainer. You should opt for the house. The car can follow later.
Well, if I have to take that mortgage, then I guess I have to say bye-bye to it.
Oh yeah, I thought you said you didn't have assets to get rid of. There it is, there you are. That's already, how much? At least $500,000, 1 million? Yeah. Yeah, you have a mortgage already. Another way to raise the deposit is to accumulate it over time. The deposit itself, you could actually reduce it if you have a pension plan by using the pension as additional security. You can actually reduce the amount of deposit you need to pay. But if you don't have that, then you'll have to accumulate the deposit. Another thing which you may need to do is look at things slightly differently. Like here you said it's nice and spacious.
Yeah.
It's near your office, it's near, it's a nice place to live. You may have, how do I put this without hurting you?
Okay. When he told me that he didn't want to hurt me, I knew there was something that was not right. Out of the blues, that's when he said,
you may actually have to accept to live in a place which is not nearly as good as this or as expensive. The amount which you pay for rent here will not be able to pay a mortgage for this similar kind of house. And that's a reality. When you're in here, very nice surroundings, very nice kitchen tops, very nice floors, everything is nice, but it's not yours.
2 years, I've made this place a home. I enjoy the space. I enjoy a lot of things in this house. I feel like it's mine.
However, if you went to and bought a smaller house, maybe not really as nice as this, it would be yours. How much do the houses go for here?
About 8, 10.
8 to 10.
million.
I think I would have thought so. I'm sure you would like to buy a place like this, to own a place like this, isn't it?
Yes, I would love to.
However, with the income which you gave me, it's not really practical.
Yeah.
Because the amount of rent you're paying here, which is basically about the maximum you can be able to pay for housing, you will not be able to afford to buy a house worth that 10 million. With that kind of money, a house of 5 million is much more practical. So you'd have to come down, because a house of 5 million, you'd pay about 50,000 shillings in mortgage and other fees. You would have to think in that way. And I know it's not easy, but in the end, it always works out better, because then you begin to accumulate your own wealth. And then at a later date, you can always upgrade.
Yeah.
On the other hand, if you continue renting like this, eventually what will happen? You remember the rent is going up and up.
After every 2 years.
Every 2 years. In the end, ultimately, you'll have to retire or something like that, isn't it?
Yes.
Then what will happen? You'll have no income to pay for rent.
Actually, you'll not be able to afford living here.
And that's the reality of the situation. Most people, by the time they're getting older, they start going to cheaper and cheaper and cheaper houses. In fact, think of it like this. You're still single, lucky guy. Yeah, you have only yourself to take care of. I can assure you, seeing your looks and the way you're attractive, I'm sure the ladies are all fighting for you. And sooner or later, one of them will manage to get you.
That's where the problems begins.
Not the problem. a new chapter in life begins. Because then you get little toddlers running around. Then you get school fees. First of all, is diapers and such things. It costs a lot of money. It doesn't look like. But it costs a lot of money. When they get to school, then it costs a huge amount of money. So you'll find it difficult to accumulate money at that time in order to buy a house. You'll find it difficult even to pay that high rent. But right now you have an opportunity, because you're still young, you're still single, you have a good income. This is the time to make your move. And once you do it, once you establish yourself in home ownership now, the future will be a lot better. That's the first step, actually, to realize the track you're headed, there may be a better one. To realize that it is actually possible to own a home. And a lot of people don't come to that realization. They're so used to paying rent. Paying rent is easy. All you need to do is pay a deposit and you get the house.
Yeah.
It's easy. But for that easy way, you end up paying dearly in the end. Buying a house is not easy. But then, is there anything good that comes easily? No. But it's really worthwhile.
It is.
So once you've come to that realization, now the hard work is to buy it, which means getting the down payment. Getting the down payment is looking at the whatever assets you could be having, which you can sell, things which you might be able to sell to raise money to pay deposit, because you need about between 10 to 20% in terms of deposit for the house and legal fees and other closing costs in order to get a mortgage. So if you don't have the liquid assets which you can liquidate, then you'll have to accumulate. The easiest way to accumulate is to, first of all, look at your budget, the way you spend your money. Do you have a written budget, one which you follow?
I do have, but sometimes I don't follow it.
Actually, that's just about you and 98% of other people.
Yeah.
Most people don't have a budget, and that's one of the problems why managing money becomes a bit difficult. But what I would urge you to do is just write down as you're spending money over a couple of months, and then you'll see where your money goes. The first big one, of course, you already know, is 57,000 rent.
Yeah.
Once you look at all those, then look for ways in which you can reduce your expenditure, so that now you can put some money aside to accumulate for deposit every month. Since you're single, and the rent is one of the biggest expenses, that's the first place you should look. Ask yourself, okay, this is a nice place to live in, but if I agreed to rent a cheaper place and save the difference, would that be would it give me better value, or should I just continue paying that high rent? For instance, if you could find a place, I don't know where, don't ask me where, I can't tell you, it's up to you, because it's you who'll be living there. If you can find a place that you can pay 30,000 shillings rent, straight away there you have 27,000 shillings a month, which you could put aside towards a house. 27,000 shillings a month in a couple of years, including the interest which you will earn, because you'll not be putting it in a bank, or you'll not be just putting it under the pillow.
It'll be earning some interest, definitely.
It'll be earning a return. Give it a few years, and you'll be surprised it'll be a substantial amount. And that's how people accumulate money for deposit. Yeah. And then each time you get a promotion, instead of spending all that money,
oh yes.
And eventually, you'll be able to raise the deposit. Do you think it's something that you can do?
Well, yeah. Okay, Manyara, so now I have the money and I need to get the 5 million house. How do the numbers look like from there?
If you have the deposit and you're buying the 5 million shilling house, it probably need to take a 4 million shillings mortgage. 4 million shillings, you'll be paying approximately 57,000 each month. Most properties usually appreciate. If it appreciates just by 5% per year, within 5 years, that house will be worth about 6.3 million shillings. Since you've been paying the mortgage, you will have paid down, and the balance of the mortgage will now be about 3.6 million. So you see, the value has gone up, your loan has gone down, and you'll have increased your wealth by over 1.7 million shillings. That is the increase in your wealth, simply by the value increase and the deduction of the... Now think about the alternative. If you are continuing to rent, would you have increased your wealth?
Not at all.
Not at all. And that is why it's critical to take this step. A mortgage is a good tool to achieve this goal, and one which is actually suitable if you have a regular, dependable income. It's not the only way, though, that you can end up owning a house. If you are somebody, for instance, who is in business, for somebody who is in business and maybe receives lump sums occasionally, they could actually buy a plot. The next lump sum they come, start building, and so on until they're finished. For somebody who may not want to get involved with the mortgage for other reasons, but are members of a cooperative society, another way is to borrow money from the cooperative society, buy a plot, and then clear that loan over 3-4 years, take another loan, and build. It may take long. It may take 7 years, even more, before they actually have the house. But it is a solid plan which is less stressful than trying to get into mortgage which they might not be able to sustain.
And what is cheaper, building your own home or taking a mortgage?
What you've asked me is something that many people wonder about, but what they don't realize is that they have mixed things there. Buying a ready-built house and building your own home is one thing. However, both of those can be achieved with a mortgage. You can actually build a home financed by a mortgage. Now, maybe the question could have been, what is cheaper, buying a ready-built house or building your own? The answer to that may be misleading. On the looks of it, building your own home is much cheaper, and the reason is the developers' profits are not there. That's about 30% of the cost straight away. However, it is not for everybody, because to be able to build a house on your own, you need some skills which most people don't have. Are you able to supervise the construction? To put it plainly, do you know how to build? Most people do not. The other thing, it's time consuming. Do you have the time? If you're fully employed, or you have your own business which you need to be there running, do you have the time? Most people do not. But if you could actually effectively supervise the construction and you have the time to do it, then you could actually save yourself a lot of money.
With his current rent, Josh can be able to buy an apartment worth 5 million. But there are several obstacles that prevent people from making this choice.
In order to buy a house, one needs to overcome several obstacles. The biggest one, I think, in my mind is the attitude. Most people are used to renting, and renting is easy. All you need to do is place a down payment and you move in the house and life goes on. Most people are comfortable with that. And most people like remaining in their comfort zone. Another aspect of the attitude is most people want, if they are going to buy a house, to buy one which is similar or even better than the one they're living in. However, the reality is that most people cannot afford to buy a similar house. Josh lives in a house which is worth about 10 million shillings, and the rent he pays is about 57,000 per month. Now, if Josh were to try to buy a similar house, you'll find that 57,000 shillings per month would not be able to buy a house of 10 million, because the biggest mortgage it can service is only about 4 million. In order for Josh to buy a house, he would have to change his attitude. He would have to actually come down to reality and accept that what he's able to afford is a house which is at most 5 million. However, that should not discourage him, because the minute he starts buying that house, he begins to get wealthier, and sooner or later, that house of 10 million which he aspires to own, he will be his for the taking, because he will have the money.
Then I guess it's up to me now.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you very much, Manyara,
Thanks, Josh,
for sharing this information. Yeah.
Thank you for being so open to those ideas, because some of them are not very popular, especially when somebody is told that they may have to reduce their standard of living or go to a cheaper house.
Yeah.
It's not very palatable.
Yes, I know that.
But sometimes it's necessary.
Honestly, I think he's right. And as much as I might have my reservations, I think it's the right decision towards a brighter future for me. If I want to own my own place, secure a future for myself and definitely my family. Paying rent actually doesn't do me any favor. If anything, it just keeps depreciating my wealth accumulation. And if I do mortgage, I'll be able to have something of my own. And I think he has a very valid point, which I hope to follow soon.
We hope Josh will make the right choice. Do join us again next week as we tackle another common personal finance matter and give you solutions to everyday financial issues.